Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast. Time to hashtag everything. We talk about all the fun, crazy stories on social media. From Instagram to Facebook, Twitter to Tumblr, or probably even Friendster. Join us each week as we explore the quirky side of social media. It's the Golden State Media Concepts social media podcast.
It's simple, such a sad song. The one that we rely on to get us.
Hello and welcome to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Sarah, and I hope you had a wonderful weekend and that your week is off to a good start. It's been a birthday-themed week for, well, more than a week. My brother-in-law's birthday was the 10th, and he and my husband are actually 4 days apart. They were both born, they celebrated their 50th this year, so they were born 4 days apart in 1969. So my husband's birthday was Thursday, and we had his birthday party on Saturday, and that was a lot of fun. We crammed about 75 people into our house, and there was so much food, and it was just crazy, but it was a good time. My hubby is an extrovert and he thrives on that stuff, and I like it at the time, but then I'm exhausted afterwards. Today is also I call her my penultimate niece because she's the second youngest. It is her 14th birthday, and we were giggling the other day that she's now an official teenager. Yes, 13 is, technically a teen, but we both said, no, 14 feels like being a real teenager. And then we listed the reasons why we thought 14 was a real teenager. She was, she's having a good day, but they announced her birthday over the intercom. She goes to she lives in a small town in Montana, so it's a fairly small school, and it's her first year there, so she's only been there a couple months, and she was mortified that they announced her birthday and then people talked to her. But she survived, so it's just been a lot of birthdays, and that's, that can be fun. I enjoy birthdays. We've been singing a lot of happy birthday. We always try to call our family members and sing to them in weird, silly ways on their birthdays. So, yeah, they pretty much know to expect to get a weird phone call from us at some point on their actual birthday. At any rate, that has nothing to do with social media news, except, of course, that, I posted about birthdays on social media, but they didn't go viral or anything. I'm okay with that. A couple of stories from last week. First off, I cannot believe that on last week's episode I did not talk about Sesame Street's 50th anniversary. It was everywhere, and it debuted. See, it's the same age as my brother and my brother-in-law, and my husband, 50 years. They are the same age, in addition to Scooby-Doo. Did you know that Scooby-Doo debuted on, I think, September 14th, 1969? No, September 13th, 1969, because Scooby-Doo is 2 months and 1 day older than my husband. So lots of good things happened in 1969, and one of them was Sesame Street. I kept seeing pictures last week of the original cast, which I miss. I grew up with Sesame Street, although I was not yet born in 1969, so I did not see that original of a cast. But I loved Mr. Hooper. I loved his store, and I was very sad when the actor who played Mr. Hooper died. And I even today, I still kind of miss that character. At any rate, did you know, you probably did because this was everywhere on my news feeds, that Oscar the Grouch was originally orange? Yeah, when it debuted in 1969, he was orange. He became a green Muppet in 1970. So, I don't know, he ripened? No, that's the opposite of ripening. Anyway, maybe if he'd continued to be orange, it would make perfect sense to me. But since he's been green my whole life, it makes more sense to me that he's green because, garbage and all that good stuff. But Sesame Street today reaches kids in 150 countries, according to their website, and in 70 languages. That is impressive. They are celebrating this anniversary with a year-long celebration. So they will be celebrating it's the 50th season, and it kicked off on November 9th. Last week with a star-studded primetime special, which is pretty amazing. New York City got an official Sesame Street, and there's just all sorts of things going on for this. There's a Sesame Street road trip. The Sesame Street Muppets have spent the my screen will not show me the rest of that sentence. That's terrible. At any rate, there we go. It is, the Sesame Street Muppets have spent the summer on an epic cross-country road trip to 10 cities to celebrate the iconic program's 50th anniversary. In each city, Sesame Street's production crew filmed a new segment capturing what kids love about where they live to air during season 50 premiering in November on HBO. So now see, just that right there. Premiering in November on HBO. This is Sesame Street we're talking about, and it's on HBO. That's weird. Here's a fun fact. Maybe you'll think it's not a fun fact. I don't know. When I was growing up, my tiny small town in Montana did not have PBS. So the local, I think my mom said the local power company at the time paid to have it put on regular TV. So I got to watch Sesame Street, but we didn't have PBS, I think, until I was in junior high, and then we finally got it. So the primetime special was hosted by Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and the special reimagines classic segments and songs like People in Your Neighborhood and It's Not Easy Being Green as the Sesame Street gang gets ready for a big celebration. So happy birthday / anniversary, whatever they're calling it, Sesame Street. I remember when Snuffy was still assumed to be Big Bird's imaginary friend. And then later in my life, people could see Snuffy, Snuffleupagus. And it turns out that they did that in a very intentional way because they were worried that kids would see that, they would see the grown-ups interacting with Big Bird and not believing him that Snuffy was real. Something would always happen. His mom would call him and he would walk away, and then somebody would come up to Big Bird and ask him what he was doing, and he'd say he'd been playing with Snuffleupagus, and they'd be like, oh, right, your imaginary friend. But he was real. And the producers and writers were worried that this would lead kids to think that adults wouldn't believe them when they tried to tell them things. And so they worked to make the adults believe Big Bird, and they changed that storyline so that kids could have that modeled for them. And I loved that. In other social media news stories, also PBS from my childhood, the new Mr. Rogers movie is coming out in a week or so, I think. And last week was, first off, again, I didn't have PBS, so I didn't grow up necessarily with Mr. Rogers, and I didn't really like Mr. Rogers when I saw him as a kid, the show, not the man, because the puppets sort of creeped me out. They just annoyed me. I don't know. But I love Mr. Rogers as an adult. I love his message. I love the way he interacted. Didn't maybe care for the show itself as a child, but as an adult, I'm just amazed at his life and what he did, and I can't wait to see that movie. But last week was World Kindness Day, one of those fun holidays that you see on social media a lot, and I very much enjoyed an article that showed newborns at Pittsburgh Hospital who were dressed up as Mr. Rogers to celebrate World Kindness Day. They are so cute. So you've got newborns in little onesies that have ties on them, and looks like, handmade. These look crocheted. Mr. Rogers were knit by his mother, but they're wearing crocheted red cardigans and crocheted little blue tennis shoes like Mr. Rogers wore, and then little pairs of brown pants, and they are so adorable. Boys and girls dressed up like Mr. Rogers, and they're newborns, so they're teeny tiny. And this, as I said, was at a Pittsburgh hospital, and this was in honor of Mr. Rogers, along with the signature red cardigans. The babies at UPMC McGee Women's Hospital were also wearing the Rogers-inspired knit booties, which whoever made all that is very, very, oh my gosh, just looking at them all lined up in their little bassinets, just a whole row of teeny tiny Mr. Rogerses, you know what I mean, is just adorable. The Instagram post says, "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood today at UPMC McGee Women's Hospital. We're welcoming Pittsburgh's newest neighbors in style for #Cardigan Day." We're going to talk more about this, but let's go ahead and take our first break of the podcast. And when we come back, I'll be gushing more about newborns and cardigans. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Do you want to be healthier, yet you just don't know what to do? All these shows telling you this and that, but nothing seems to work. Well, listen close. Golden State Media Concepts has got something great for you. The Health and Wellness Podcast, dedicated to workout trends, healthy eating habits, diet, and everything about healthy living. Join us in our banters as we help you not just live life to the fullest, but live it to the healthiest.
Welcome back to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast. Before the break, I was gushing about newborns, and I'm going to continue gushing about newborns dressed up like Mr. Rogers, because how can you not gush about it? There are, of course, pictures of them, and also I saw that Mrs. Rogers was able to be there and see the babies dressed up in honor of her late husband, and I thought that was really very sweet. There's another post, Instagram post that says, if I can get my computer screen to cooperate with me, it keeps scrolling in weird ways. It says, "We welcomed Pittsburgh's newest neighbors in style for #Cardigan Day. Big thanks to Mrs. Rogers for stopping by." So not only are the babies adorable in their little Mr. Rogers outfits, but the look on Mrs. Rogers' face. And you don't hear a lot about her because she wasn't on the television show. But I'll be interested to see how they portray that relationship in the upcoming movie as well. Mrs. Rogers' first name is Joanne, not Mrs., in case you were wondering or didn't know, and she was married to Fred Rogers from 1952 until he died in 2003. And they actually surprised her with this, so it was very sweet to see her face. And I didn't mention that the cardigans and booties were handcrafted by the baby's nurse, Caitlin, Peshin. So I was wondering who had knitted them, or created them, crocheted them, etc. And it was right there, and I just missed it because I am silly like that. So a lot of fun with this story. If you're interested, you should definitely check out the video of Joanne Rogers looking at the babies and then talking a bit about her husband, who, I said he died in 2003. I can't believe that's 16 years ago already. That seems really crazy. But the article is very sweet, and she talks, of course, about Mr. Rogers and how he would want to meet the parents in addition to seeing the babies. And she looked down, she said, "Yeah, I think this is one of Fred's sweaters, one of his early ones, because it has buttons." And she said he switched to zippers because when he would button them, he would always button them crooked and end up uneven at the bottom. So you see, Mr. Rogers had his quirks as well. I know we've talked about, some kid-related topics today, but this is what is trending, and it's making my heart happy. Something that is kind of kid-related, but very popular among my adult friends on social media lately is the launch of Disney Plus. And last week, my news feeds were full of Disney Plus. The Mandalorian, but mostly Disney Plus. I mean, people were talking about how they got Disney Plus. They were posting their avatars that they chose for Disney Plus. There were Disney Plus memes out the whatever you want to say. This is, the wazoo, I guess we'll say. And so Disney Plus is a streaming service for Disney. according to their website, it's Disney Classics, Pixar Adventures, Marvel Epics, Star Wars Sagas, National Geographic Explorations, and more. So you can see why people would be excited about it. I mean, they're adults and children alike are, you meet people that are just obsessed with Disney, in love with Disney, but then you add in Star Wars and the Marvel Universe, and whew, that is crazy. From Mickey Mouse to Iron Man, Snow White to Moana, Luke Skywalker to Thor, there's something for everyone. And so people were just kind of obsessed with everything that came out. And I'm just scrolling through, and, there's stuff from the Disney Channel, and there's movies from Disney, of course, and Captain Marvel, Iron Man 3, Marvel movies, Disney movies, Rogue One, Guardians of the Galaxy. I mean, stream now or download and go. And I know that they're, so it's one price just for Disney Plus, $6.99, I think I saw. And then, $6.99 a month for Disney Plus, and then it's $12.99 a month, and you get Hulu, Disney Plus, and ESPN Plus, which is weird to me, but I keep forgetting that Disney owns ESPN now, as well as most of the known universe. So you can stream exclusive Disney Plus originals, and The Mandalorian is one of those. It is a Disney Plus original, and it focuses on, if you watch the prequels, if you watch the originals, there was Boba Fett. And if you watch the prequels, then there was Jango Fett. But now there is, this is following a different bounty hunter, the Mandalorian. And so Disney Plus was trending, but now today my news feed I have trending because of Baby Yoda. If you haven't seen the stills of Baby Yoda, or maybe you watched it in real time, I have not yet watched The Mandalorian. It's on my list of things to accomplish sometime in my lifetime. But if maybe you watched it on the actual show, or maybe you've seen the pictures of Baby Yoda. He's got those great big eyes that, Disney, often Disney females have, but oh my gosh, he's so cute. There was one that I saw that had 6 or 7 pictures, and just each one, he's kind of like a combination between an adorable cat and, Stitch from Lilo and Stitch. Except cuter, I don't know. It's just so cute. And I'm sure there will be a million memes about that. I've just gotten posts of how adorable he is. And I admit, I think my hubby shared a post earlier, and I went through all the pictures and went, oh, you're so cute. So, wow, that was really squeaky. But sometimes you get squeaky. What else? We've talked about Sesame Street. We've talked about Mr. Rogers. We've talked about Disney. So let's talk about a more grown-up topic. Okay, that seems, whatever. We'll move on to a grown-up topic, and that is that In Living Color is going to hit the big screen. If you were a fan or are a fan of the show, it has been 25 years since the finale. And if you aren't familiar with the show, you are definitely familiar with a lot of the people that were on the show. Jim Carrey was on the show. The Wayans brothers were on the show. Carrie Ann Inaba, from Dancing with the Stars. Jennifer Lopez started on the show. Just, there's so many people on this that had their start on this show. And in addition to not having PBS, I also didn't have cable, so I didn't see this show in real time. I missed out on a lot of things. But this is according to HuffPost.com. The forthcoming 18th annual Tribeca Film Festival in New York City will feature a screening of the pilot episode of the popular 1990s sketch comedy series In Living Color. The festival, which will take place from April 24th to May 5th, will for the first time celebrate anniversaries and milestones of iconic television shows as part of its Tribeca TV program, the festival said. In Living Color aired its final episode in 1994. The Simpsons, which will celebrate the 30th anniversary of its first standalone episode, man, that's crazy too, next December, will also be recognized in the film festival for its influence on television. In Living Color The In Living Color pilot is slated to screen in a theater on April 27th, followed by a conversation with members of the cast, including the show's creator, Kean Ivory Wayans, and co-stars Sean Wayans, Kim Wayans, Tommy Davidson, David Alan Grier, and Rosie Perez, a press release stated. So you probably recognize most of those names, right? 25 years after its finale, the cast and creator of the groundbreaking sketch comedy show In Living Color will reunite to reflect on the Emmy Award-winning show that upended the landscape of television comedy and launched the careers of some of the greatest entertainers of our time, the announcement read. Monday on Twitter, Davidson teased the news, Monday, that would be today, the news of the reunion with a throwback photo that also featured other cast members, including Jim Carrey, Kim Coles, and Kelly Cofield Park. Guess who's getting together for at Tribeca FF 2019? He wrote, "That's right, hashtag in living color, getting together for a reunion." The series also featured a troupe of dancers called the Fly Girls, which included at times Jennifer Lopez, Carrie Ann Inaba, and Deidre Lang. Asked last year about the possibility of a revival of In Living Color, Carrie told E.T., "That show needs to exist. I'd love to see it reconstitute itself in another form." So if you were a fan of that show, or if you're curious, that will be happening at the Tribeca Film Festival in April, and then, and it'll be on the big screen April 27th. So that will be interesting, and I'm sure there will be other stories about it as well. It is time to go ahead and take our second break of the podcast. When we come back, we'll be talking about another celebrity, not death. So stay tuned. You're listening to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back to the GSMC Social Media News Podcast. Before the break, we were talking about In Living Color, and now we are moving on to, I said, an internet not death. So one day last week, this article is from November 14th. Hubby's birthday. But one day last week, I remember seeing something along the lines of, don't worry, Dwayne Johnson is still alive. Dwayne Johnson, Dwayne, or The Rock, as he is also known. And I thought, wait, what, huh? He's not dead? He is dead? No, he's not. That's silly. It is an internet hoax, of course, and this is at least the fourth time that the internet has, attempted to kill off The Rock, and he's not the first celebrity who has had a celebrity death hoax. I know Morgan Freeman has been dead so many times that no one's going to believe when he actually passes, which I hope is not for a very, very long time, but no one's going to believe it when it does actually happen. Johnson, who is 47, became the victim of yet another death hoax this week after a story went viral on social media under the headline, BBC, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson dies at 47 after a terrible stunt attempt failed. The link included the use of the BBC's logo in an image, but sent users to a fake news website. The BBC, meanwhile, has no such story in its website. Despite the fake news, many fans expressed shock over Johnson's apparent death. Do your research, people, via social media. So, The Rock is dead? ? All caps, The Rock is dead? Wait, was I just looking up memes of him? What? please, is it true that The Rock is dead? I mean, come on, people, don't just ask the question. Google it, at least. Usually the first thing you can do is, you Google it and they'll say, nope, it's not true. So, yeah, well, then the article goes on to say that they should have known better. The most recent hoax is actually a rehash of a previous fake story that appeared several times dating back to 2011. It previously reemerged in 2014 and 2017, though under various headlines that included attribution to news outlets like Fox, indicating that Johnson was killed after a terrible stunt connected to an installment of the Fast and Furious film franchise. Ooh, good alliteration. Snopes reports. While Johnson has not yet addressed, this article was from the 14th, this year's hoax's publicity in 2011, he let Facebook fans know they could still smell what The Rock is cooking in a post, writing that he is still bringing it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, including leap year. The actor has, however, been posting on Instagram amid the spread of rumors that he died. Primarily, Johnson has been promoting the upcoming Jumanji, The Next Level, which is scheduled for release on December 13th. The film, of course, stars Johnson alongside Kevin Hart, who is, as we mentioned in the last episode, recovering from that serious car crash he had back in September. And so, even dead, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is still posting on Instagram. Good on you. Sylvester Stallone has had a death. He had a death hoax for the fourth time also last year. The connection there is that he is also a Pennsylvania connected celebrity, and this article is apparently, it's the Philadelphia Inquirer. That's why they brought it up. Celebrity death hoaxes are likely little more than a way to stir the social media pot. That's a quote. Because you're going to get attention by killing off a well-known figure. Clickbait, in other words. That is empowerment for some people. Frank Farley told the Inquirer, they started this and they know that they did it, and now take a look. It reminds me of arsonists who sometimes hang out and watch their handiwork. Well, I guess I don't know. I'm not going to make a comparison on whether or not that is the same thing. So yeah, don't believe anytime. Whenever I see that someone has died, I immediately look it up. I just go to Google, I type it in, and I see if there are actual articles, more than one, from reputable sites saying that a celebrity has in fact died, or if there are articles, or if you type in a celebrity's name and the first things that come up are their newest movie, or their newest TV show, or who they're dating, etc., then you can pretty much guarantee that they probably have not died. But definitely go and make sure. And usually when you do a little more digging, you'll see that you'll find the articles that say, no, that's not true. It is, it's just a hoax. It's just clickbait. So do not believe it. But, so, it always makes me happy when people are not actually dead. But then there are the times, of course, when you see it and you're like, oh, I hope that's not true. And you look it up and a celebrity has in fact died, and then you're like, oh man. So you get to reminisce about, and it's not like I know any celebrities, but you reminisce about the films or the TV shows, or the albums, whatever, that meant something to you in your own life, and you kind of commemorate them in that way. So thank you so much for joining me for this episode of the GSMC Social Media News Podcast. I am glad that The Rock is not in fact dead. Good on you, Dwayne. Please join me again for the next episode. We'll find out what is trending at that point in the world. If you enjoyed this episode, if you enjoy this podcast, if you're a regular listener, and it is the Social Media News Podcast, so please do follow us on social media, repost when we post episodes, comment, leave comments. I would love to hear your thoughts. And the best thing that you can do for us, besides, liking and retweeting and sharing and all that good stuff, is to give us a rating, subscribe to us, and help us out in the world of the internet, because that will definitely keep this podcast going and get it out to other listeners who enjoy social media news as well. So thank you so much. Join me again next time. In the meantime, have a wonderful week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Social Media Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.